Good afternoon, everybody. This is Deb SaBell with the Win-Win Women Network and Caring for the Caregivers. Today, I am going to talk a bit about what exactly that means with regards to yourself. Well, first of all, caring for oneself, it's really up to you. I had a team of people behind me, and for instance, with whatever association could be attributed to an illness that you're dealing with, there is typically an association that will help you with that. And along with that comes support, um, any kind of, well, where I was involved with, they called it the toys, but really what that is supporting props and pieces depending on the person's ability. I mean, it could be the pickers, it could be a cane, it could be a wheelchair, it could be a motorized wheelchair, it could be things to help them if they can't speak to speak in other forms like with the computer. So there's all kind of support that, when I was first in a caregiver position, I had no idea that there were support entities, and they really do get you on the path to starting what you're doing well. And all through the association I was involved with, there was a gal that was a counselor, and that I think most of her patients we're dealing with someone with an illness, and death can be involved or not, and what it means to be giving up your life as a caregiver if you have to. If you don't, that's great. Some people have a team where, like, maybe someone can still go to work, but then other people come in and they've covered for them, and it still allows them to make an income. And on that note, I'd like to talk about if that's not the case. And I'd like to go a little more extensively into this because I've touched on it in other talks. But for instance, in the county, there is care programs, and long-term care is the term with most counties. And I really want to emphasize that all counties are different, and I've helped a lot of people along the way. And because of my background in the industry I was in, I'm very good with programs. Because I have to tell you, when I first called the county myself for our situation, because I knew that I couldn't work forever, and I was trying to see if there was some assistance, the people that answered the phone, were not used to dealing with like a long-term care applicant. They were thinking that I was calling for food stamps or something like that. And they said, oh, they asked me a couple of questions and they were like, oh, you won't qualify. So I hung up the phone, and then I don't know, it was like 3 months later, I happened to call back because I had a conversation with somebody, I don't even remember now, and their grandchild had an issue. Therefore, her daughter was getting assistance. And I said, I called and they don't have assistance. And I thought, well, maybe her county was different. Turns out when I called back, it was just God's hand, actually, that, or whatever source you believe in, that I was the head of the whole county was covering lunch because there was a mandatory meeting. And therefore, they I told her my situation. I said I called before and heard that you didn't have a program, but I just talked to someone and she said, I don't know who told you that. What's your situation? She's like, can you come over here and pick up the application? I literally went that afternoon, and within days, we were in an interview, got accepted, and I had a monthly income at the time when I was ready to quit work. And so it's, and I have so many people that are referred to me that call because, when things first happen, you're very scrambled and you don't know what's going on and you're just in shock sometimes. So that being said, you're, like in my case, I believed someone and they were wrong. So you have to dig a little bit. You have to know that not everybody knows the right answer. And, fortunately, I was able to quit work and do what I needed to do for several years. And so just know that there are programs out there. I'm here to help if you need it, because it can be very confusing, very daunting, and you may not be being told the right answer. So just know that. And the next thing I want to talk about is, well, taking responsibility for your own care. And as I said earlier, a little bit ago, that, I heard about a counselor that was in the realm of what I was dealing with, which was certainly not anything that I knew about before. And, I saw her for several years every week. And the lifelines that people that have knowledge, and I mean, I consider myself a mentor at this point because I learned a lot along the way, and I'm here to share and help people. But like, some of the things that never occurred to me were, at one point, and I'd say it was about 2 years in, I was asked by her to go on a break, and they're actually called respite retreats, if you will. It doesn't mean it's a real retreat. I was absolutely dumbfounded, saying, how can I leave? There's no way to leave. Like, how could I do this? I mean, I really didn't believe I could. I mean, there's so much that you do in a day with someone that's terminally ill, and then you'd have to get someone to fill in. So long story short, I she actually pulled a interesting trick on me. She was like, then I can't see you anymore. And I'm like, are you kidding me? You're my lifeline. What would I do without you? And she said, then find a way to get away for at least a weekend. I did, and it changed my life. I have to tell you, I never got off my girlfriend's couch. She was working. I laid on the couch for 2 days and watched Lifetime movies, and I just shut down and relaxed. And I went home and I was totally refreshed and in such a better situation. And, so so we are all responsible for our own care. Seeing the counselor, going on a respite retreat, and I had a girlfriend that would come over once a week, and she liked to let me know, and I love that she did, because it reminded me. And she would say, I'm here for you, not the other person. And I said, no, I understand that. She goes, but I want you to really understand it. I'm here so you have someone to talk to once in a while, just to get out of your head. And we would literally go out on my patio, close the door, get blocked away from everything inside of the house. And we'd sit and chat for 30 minutes, and like, she'd bring recipes to me and books and things like that. And we just shared the energy. Another really interesting thing that happened to me was, um, I used to take, in this case, it was my husband, and I think everybody pretty much knows, I've talked about that he had ALS, which is very debilitating. And I used to take him to get his teeth cleaned. And Even when he was sick and getting on and stuff like that, as long as he could walk, I took him in. And um, this is incredible. So one day, the hygienist at his office, and I didn't go there, although I knew everybody at that point, but because I had to bring him in there. So she called me up and said, "I want to offer to help you." And I'm like, I don't even know this woman. Like, excuse me? And she said, she's like my age and just, didn't have a family in town or anything. And she said, "I want to offer to help you." And I was really taken aback because I really don't even know this woman. And she's like, "Well, why don't I come over and at least visit once and we could talk?" And it turned out like she started coming over on Friday evenings after she got off work. And we would pray, we would light a candle and have like, something to eat, snacks, and just ask God to please let things go the way they're supposed to go, and for everyone's sake, as best as they can. And then after he passed, it was about 6 months later, and this is just a true testament to the incredible support that people have if you allow yourself. Like this lady, I didn't even know her, but in time I got to know her, and she was wonderful, Patricia. So anyway, after a while, we were having, got together one evening, and she told me, she said, every time you brought him in, I never once cleaned his teeth. And I was like, what? What are you talking about? She said, "I never cleaned his teeth." I said, "Well, what did you do?" She said, "I let him talk." Now I want you to think about that. And I said, "Oh my gosh." She said, "That's what he needed. He needed to talk and have someone listen. He was very worried about me and after he was gone, how I would be." And she promised him that she would, be there for me, and she was there for him. And I mean, I could just tell you so many incredible, incredible stories of caregivers having to take care of themselves. I mean, I allowed this woman, I mean, obviously I got to know her a little bit, and she worked at the dentist office. And I mean, I knew where she was. So, but you have to allow for those situations that come up and be open to them for your own sake. You really do have to take care of yourself. Last week, we talked about optimum health from an internal standpoint, keeping your own immune system up. Um, I have touched on another couple weeks ago, it was with Rick Sugarman and the healing yoga. And that's something that you can just do in your house. And we're talking 5 minutes, maybe you can do 2 or 3 minutes. The healing meditations are huge because, and I want to read something that speaks to that, if I can say it really well. When we're stuck in our heads, we dull our outer senses, and it's essential to read life accurately. So you can't be stuck in the drama of what's going on, and it's hard not to. I know that as well as anybody. But these different modalities and tools that I'm talking about, the meditation, the healing yoga, which will all be up on my website very soon and all free. And, the having some space for yourself, and it could be any room, it could be a dining room, it could be a living room, it could be in the basement, it could be on the porch. But if you could get in the habit of taking time to go spend time for yourself with yourself. I've spoken about the fact I had an extra bedroom. I had a wonderfully comfortable chair. I used to put on healing music, meditation, and I could not get my brain to focus, which now after the show with Rick, I know that that's normal. And if we can just drop it down a notch, a notch, a notch, a little notch at a time, eventually it will add up and you'll get somewhere with having some peace inside of yourself. And I just wanted to read this is to center in your body, is to get centered in your body. You sit comfortably in a chair, gently inhale through your nose. You do that 3 times and exhale as actually if you can in a loud fashion. It's does something to the body. I don't know, but anyway, and once your heart space is opening, you push out all the disturbing energy above and below and center on your heart, front and back and both sides. You have to literally picture that. And it takes a while to do that. But, if you just write down the steps and you have some very soothing music on, it can happen. And it leaves you centered, clear, energetic space for the perception of what you need to feel and allow yourself to feel. And I've mentioned before, because I could not focus, it was a hard time to be able to focus. I would sit there and read the Caregiver's Bill of Rights. And you can Google that. It's by AARP where I got mine. And I would just sit there and read the whole thing over and over, listening to the music. But, you have to say that after 30, 45 minutes of having that downtime away from the outside noise of what's going on, I mean, if it's terminal, it's death energy. That's not easy to live in. And I'm just being really honest here for the caregivers that are going through that. Those are the ones, I mean, my heart so goes out to you because it's a tough, tough space to be. And having my girlfriend come over, which actually she did that. I didn't, that wasn't me, that was her. But all these things are what get you through, and you have to cultivate that. I mean, going for a walk. I used to go, well, I put exercise, but for me, I would get on my bike and there was, about a half a mile away or less. It was not far. It was in the subdivision across the street from mine. There was a pond with a bench. So I would ride my bike to that pond and I would sit there and I would just look at the water, the ripples of the water, the ducks. And I'd probably stay there 15, 20 minutes and then I'd get on my bike and ride home. I would go for a walk in the evening. And because that was hard for me to do too, I would call my girlfriend in Atlanta and chat with her because at least I was walking. And we all know that, obviously that is good for your body. I mean, like from an endorphin standpoint, I'm not talking about weight or anything. I'm talking about getting your mind wrapped around good thoughts and good feelings as best you can, even for 20, 30 minutes, if it's a walk. And that's what my little bike ride in the mornings was. Reducing the stress. It's just all about caring for yourself, to be very honest. And, change is hard. And just learning to roll with it is very important. So I want to also say that there are grants available. So if maybe you need some equipment for your person that's ill, there are grants. And if you can't figure that out, call me. The county, we talked about the long-term care. I talked about people that we allow to come in, even if we're not comfortable, like the hygienist. And, have a friend come over just to be with you, go out on a patio like I did, get some space from, where you are. And, I want to tell one little story on the flip side that will also speak to another piece of it. I became a professional caregiver after my husband passed after 2 years. And it was by chance, but it turned into 10 years of really, really incredible blessings on a journey of healing. And I say that very loosely because there was a lot to heal over. And, I think about all the supportive people. And one of them, this is a story on the opposite end of it. So, as a caregiver, I had clients that I would go see. And one day, this one lady, her husband was the one that he actually had Lewy body dementia. So he was up all night hallucinating. And they had 24-hour care because they were elderly and the wife couldn't handle it. But she was there and in another bedroom. And one morning I came out, she said, Debbie, come sit down for a minute. And we chatted. And it was so nice just to, because she hears everything going on. And she said, you are the only caregiver that treats my husband like I would. And that she meant that she used to. She was too old to do it at that point. And I told her, I said, well, thank you, but I want to tell you something. That's like hard to hear because everybody, we get paid good money to be here, and everybody should be doing that. And everyone leaves notes at the end of the day. And if I could tell you the notes that the other people used to leave and saying, he was up all night, I'm like, oh my goodness, that's what you're being paid for. But I have to tell you, I would, when I heard him wake up, I'd usually be on my computer. There was a little side room. And when I'd hear him, I would do things like I knew that he sang at his church choir. And when he would be at his worst, just yelling and screaming and everything, I knew that that wasn't in his control. So I would end up, to get him out of his head, I would do things with him. So, for instance, I got him up and I would take him on walks in his wheelchair because they were in a facility where they had their own apartment. But I would take him out in the halls, go down to the rec room. I mean, this is like 3 and 4 in the morning, put on TV and say, hey, do you like the football game, the golfing? And next thing you know, he would be talking to me normal. And then because I knew he sang in the choir at church, one time I said to him, I know that you used to sing. Why don't you sing me something? And it got his attention enough out of his place he was. And he'd say, oh, I don't know what I'd sing. And I said, why don't you sing Amazing Grace? I mean, everybody knows Amazing Grace. And, about a minute or so later, and I was just sitting there quietly and, watching him, and he kind of would settle down and he starts singing. And like, I just can't tell you the joy in one's heart when they get that feeling that they know they're doing something nice for someone that's in a bad place. And Lord knows he was, I'm sure, so miserable and didn't even want to be there, but he was, and he was getting through it as best he could. But I mean, that's the other end of it too. I always say to people, I can tell you as many good stories as bad, meaning sad. And that's one of the many good ones. Um, hold on while I glance at my notes. Setting goals. Sometimes it's good to write things down. I mean, I don't know if you're a person that wants to do that. I found that my mind was so busy with everything going on around me that it was hard to focus on myself or anything. It is very hard. And, if you write out a little plan, like today I'm going to go for a walk. Today I'm going to try and do 5 minutes of healing yoga. Today I'm going to listen to a 5-minute meditation. And asking for help is huge. I mean, you know, I mean, there's a certain couple that I was mentoring, and oddly enough, it was more about getting them into the programs and helping them do that. And because I went over and met with them at their table, and we were sitting there, the one spouse that was not sick finally got because I was talking about here's what needs to happen, here's what is this and that, just steps along the way. What comes next? What comes after that? And next thing you know, the husband got the nerve up to say, I'm sorry, I'm not interested in being that person. I can't do this. Like, that is not comfortable for me. I'm letting you all know. And you know what? That was a really brave and hard thing to do. But sometimes when you have someone that it was like I was the buffer for him, because clearly, I mean, his wife was so taken aback. And it was a space for him to be honest, because I was talking about the next steps. And he was like, I'm not up for it. I can't do it. I can't watch it. It's killing me. And I'm trying to be honest about it. And I mean, if you think about it, that is a huge piece to understand so you can plan another path, another route. Do you have enough money to cover it with somebody else? Yada, yada, all the things. Is there someone else in the family or a friend that wants to step in? But just for him to be able to be honest because there was somebody there, and he wasn't just alone and hurting his spouse. That was a huge moment in his life. And see, then they can plan accordingly. And I have to tell you, I saw them at a function a year or so later, and it was just so wonderful. I heard she was asking for me, and it was like, oh my goodness. You just can't put a price on that incredible energy of gratefulness from someone that you've been there for. Another thing is trying not to get too caught up in it. And that is going to sound a little bit crazy and silly, maybe. But, hopefully by listening to this show, maybe you could listen to it over and over and get the strength to do something you need to do. But navigating through this is a huge thing as a caregiver in any way, really. And it's hard and it's backbreaking and it's frustrating. I mean, sometimes they throw things, they argue with you, they hit you, all kind of things. And you have to navigate through it, and you have to learn how to not get caught up in it. And this is another piece of that, another resource that I used to talk to. And like every couple of weeks, we'd have a session. And one time I was told, because, it was hard, and I was talking about this, that, and the other. I mean, it breaks your heart. And what I was advised of was, if I can't get my head out of it, and in other words, be there for that person and really put it in a different place, then I shouldn't be there. And that was a huge piece for me. And I thought about it. And you know what? Another along those lines, another really great story I'm so proud of. I've taken a lot of courses and trainings and classes, and one of them was on with Deepak Chopra. And on the break, he was doing book signings. Well, I had his books at home, so I brought one in because it was like a couple day class or something, and I wanted to talk to him. And I said, and this is quantum physics for all of you that maybe don't know who he is. And it's all about energy. We are all energy. Everything is energy. And when you understand that, that helps. And so anyway, I went on the break and I said, I don't need your signature. I'm here to ask you a question. I said, he doesn't want to die and I don't want him to die. And I want you to tell me how to fix this, because I really did believe between free will and some miracle of some sort medically, you don't want to give up hope. In our case, there was no treatment or cure. So we were just left with, it is what it is. And after that, so I asked him, I'm like, okay, tell me what to do. And I really thought that we could, in our mind, change something, because, there is free will. There's all kind of things that if you want to believe in something to help someone you love dearly not to die, you'll believe anything and read anything and learn anything. So he took a long pause and he said to me, Debbie, sometimes it's just in God's hands. And I have to tell you, we had about 2 years left at that point, and that took about 4 days to process. And when I got finished with that, I turned everything around. It was like, okay, where do you want to go? What do you want to see? What's important to you before you go to visit, to take in, to know. And we went on about 20 bucket list trips, and that became, along the way, I would always factor in doctors, because everyone's always sending you, go to this guy here, or go to this guy, and he can help. And so I'd factor that in. But taking people to, that aren't going to be here maybe for long, and having them experience whatever they want to. I mean, it's such a joy to have watched and been part of, to be very honest with you. I mean, I have no regrets with, I used to hate folding up that wheelchair and putting it in the back by myself. But I got to tell you, there's one more funny story about that. Speaking of wheelchair, we went to a wedding, and it was a very big wedding. And when we got there where we parked, there was gravel. So I'm, getting him in the wheelchair, and then I'm trying to push in the gravel. Well, little did I know, but coming up from behind me, these are just the little miracles that happen, that are the great stories you remember, that are just so awesome. So there was a couple of professional basketball players, like 7-foot tall guys or taller. And I didn't know they were behind me, and they saw me trying to push in the gravel. It was like 6 feet to the sidewalk. And next thing I know, they come one on each side up behind me. They're like, move over, little lady. And they literally picked up the wheelchair, one on each side. And I thought they were going to get to the sidewalk and stop there and let me carry on. And I'm like, no, 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 you can put him in. They're like, no, 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 we got this. They carrying him in a wheelchair, each one on each side, carried him all the way into the place, into the building, into the wedding. And it was just, I sat there and was in such awe. It was the most, I wish I had a camera in my hand at the time, because it was just really cool. Anyway, all that being said, I want to add a couple more things before I close out for today. So, to cultivate supportive relationships, you have to communicate your goals and needs. You have to seek out mentors, and you have to reciprocate support. And, us caregivers, we do that all the time. After I was alone, I used to say, hey, call me on the holidays because I'm not busy. And then I want to say one more thing here. Michelle Obama shared, life is a journey to be embraced. How can we do that if we're afraid of life's challenges and fear leaving what we are most comfortable with, or person? We only have one life to live. In the end, do you want to be standing there with nothing accomplished and nothing gained because you feared taking a chance? I don't think so. So break out of your comfort zone, feel uncomfortable, and enjoy the ride. And essentially, that's what if you can get into that mindset and just know that it's not your movie, it's their movie. And you have to be able to be supportive in their movie for them. And with that, I'm going to close for today and say that, well, I'll just say that I'm here. And if you need me, reach out and I can help you with any resources or support you may need. Knowledge is key. Sometimes in situations like this, some people don't have a support system yet or an association that has one. So I am here if you need me. And I am so grateful to be part of the Win-Win Women Network and have this show. And I hope that I've helped someone today. And this is Debbie SaBell saying goodbye. And I hope you have a great week.